Hello, you're watching All 24 News World News program. I'm your host, Melissa Noor Khemilat, and to the headlines. On the sidelines of his participation in the 77th session of the UN General Assembly, Algerian Foreign Minister Mtalla Mamra pleads for a practical approach taking into account needs of developing countries. Also in our news, President Vladimir Putin orders Russia's first mobilization since World War II. Coming up, leaders from around the world speak today before the UN General Assembly, which this year is marked by the war in Ukraine, climate change and food insecurity. And Hurricane Fiona devastates many parts of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic areas. Algerian Foreign Minister Mtalla Mamra, at the invitation of his Chinese counterpart, Mr. Wang Yi, participated on Tuesday at a ministerial meeting of the Group of Friends of the Global Development Initiative, on the sidelines of his participation in the 77th session of the General Assembly held at the United Nations headquarters in New York. This initiative, launched by the Chinese president, aims at strengthening cooperation on the Global Development Initiative for accelerated implementation of the UN agenda.
Algeria has been among the first countries to join this valuable initiative that was launched amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, whose socio-economic impacts have proven the relevance of such gatherings to spearhead the UN development agenda. In this regard, and in the context of the challenges imposed by the ongoing tensions in the international relations that have further exacerbated the COVID-19 impacts, Algeria strongly believes that it is crucial to strengthen international development cooperation in order to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda. It is important to adopt an action-oriented vision with the aim of addressing these multiple challenges and making sure that no one is left behind. In the same vein, it is important to urgently support countries affected by the food crisis, especially developing countries, through multi-stakeholder coordinated actions and enhanced cooperation partnerships. Second, the mobilization of sufficient financing is critical to accelerate progress towards achieving the 2030 agenda. Algeria has been among the first countries to join this.
Algerian Foreign Minister Mtalla Mamra, accompanied by the permanent representative to the United Nations Nadir Arbawi and all members of the Algerian delegation, launched a campaign to promote Algeria's candidacy for a non-permanent membership in the Security Council from 2024 to 2025 during the elections to be held within the framework of the 77th session of the General Assembly in July 2023. According to a statement by the Algerian Foreign Ministry, banners were put at the United Nations headquarters presenting the Algerian candidacy for the Security Council and for the membership in the Human Rights Council in Geneva. Leaders from around the world spoke today before the UN General Assembly, which this year is marked by the war in Ukraine, climate change and food insecurity. Hossein Berkan has more details.
In a world beset by crises, world leaders took turns in the deeply divided UN General Assembly. For almost a week, some 150 heads of state and government from around the world will discuss the challenges facing the world marked by the war in Ukraine and its consequences. Speaking to world leader, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the world is in big trouble and needs collective actions across the board.
Our world is in peril and paralyzed. Geopolitical divides are undermining the work of the Security Council, undermining international law, undermining trust and people's faith in democratic institutions, undermining all forms of international cooperation.
Secretary General stepped up his attacks on oil and gas companies, which have seen their profits exploded by tens of billions of dollars.
It's high time to put fossil fuel producers, investors, and enablers on notice. Polluters must pay. And today I'm calling on all developed economies to tax the windfall profits of fossil fuel companies.
In turn, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that Russian President Vladimir Putin will only give up his imperial ambitions that risk destroying Ukraine and Russia if he recognizes that he cannot win the war.
If we want this war to end, we cannot be indifferent to how it ends. Putin will only give up his war and his imperialist ambitions if he realizes he cannot win this war. He's not only destroying Ukraine, he's also ruining his own country.
Addressing the United Nations General Assembly, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, describing it as destabilizing the international order to its core.
We see today its foundations being gravely shaken. Russia's aggression against Ukraine is an act that tramples on the vision and principles of the UN Charter. What is crucial is for any and all countries to be under the rule of law, not the rule by force, which we absolutely cannot allow.
So far, a clear majority of the world's countries have backed Ukraine at the United Nations. And Western powers are expected this week to also seek to gain the support of major countries that have remained more or less on the sideline for months.
President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday ordered Russia's first mobilization since World War II, warning the West that if it continued what he called its nuclear blackmail, Moscow would respond with the might of all its vast arsenal. The blunt warning from Putin, whose country has more nuclear warheads than even the United States, marks the biggest escalation of the conflict, which began on February 24th, when Moscow sent troops into Ukraine in what it casts as its special military operation.
To protect our motherland, its sovereignty and territorial integrity, to ensure the security of our nation and people at the liberated territories, I consider it's necessary to support the Defense Ministry's and General Staff's proposals to hold partial mobilization in Russia. I want to remind those who allow themselves such statements about Russia that our country also has a variety of weapons of destruction, and in some areas even more modern than those in NATO countries. And if the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will without question use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people. This is not a bluff.
President of Peru, Pedro Castillo, received Sahrawi Foreign Minister Mohammed Salim Salik and his accompanying delegation at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Castillo earlier renewed his support to Sahrawi people in his speech at the UNGA.
Peru has restored diplomatic relations with the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and support its right to self-determination. We give our full support to nations and to endeavors that the Secretary General representative must make to restore the ceasefire in Western Sahara and for negotiated peaceful solution.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced on Wednesday that Russia will draft 300,000 reserves to support its military campaign in Ukraine in televised remarks as President Vladimir Putin had ordered Russia's first mobilization since World War II. Shoigu claimed the mobilization would help Russia consolidate territories it holds behind a 1,000-kilometer front line in Ukraine. The two regions in the Donbass, in addition to Zaporizhia and Kherson, have announced a plan to hold a series of referendums joining Russia. The move was welcomed by Moscow, however, it was strongly condemned by some Western countries. Nabil Khazini with the details.
Authorities in the self-proclaimed republics of Donetsk and Luhansk have announced the organization of a referendum on the possible accession of these territories to Russia. The leaders of the two self-proclaimed regions said they would hold a 4-day referendum to formally join the Russian Federation, starting as soon as Friday. Moscow recognized the two territories as independent republics in February, and the Russian president welcomes the move and says Russia will support it.
не можем не откликнуться на их искренность.
We cannot fail to respond to their sincere desire to determine their own fate. The parliaments of Donbass People's Republics, as well as civil military administrations of Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions, have decided on holding referendums to determine the future of these territories and asked us, Russia, for support.
И обратились к нам, к России, с просьбой поддержать такой шаг.
In addition to the two eastern regions, the Civil Council in Kherson also presented an initiative to hold a referendum on the annexation of Kherson to Russia. The regional leaders said they would soon be reunited with Russia. Kherson has once again opted for an initiative which they believe will be approved by the population and will help to ensure security in the territory. And in Zaporizhzhia, its governor said the population is ready to participate in the referendum. The series of referendums was faced with angry responses from the West, with Germany and the United States to be among the first to say they would never recognize the results of the votes.
As we've been warning for months, Russia appears to be proceeding with plans to hold sham referenda in areas of Ukraine under its control, and even in areas of Ukraine not currently under its control, in direct violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. The United States will never recognize Russia's claims to any purportedly annexed parts of Ukraine.
If the four regions join Russia, this means that around 20% of the Ukrainian territory will be lost in what might be a considerable gain for Moscow.
Now we are joined live from Turkey by Mr. Engin Koç, Assistant Professor of International Relations. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Putin ordered partial military mobilization amid setbacks in Ukraine. What are your first thoughts on that?
First of all, in the beginning of the war, on February 2022, Putin thought that this war will be end within few days, approximately 3 days, 1 week, or little bit more, but not so much larger. Right now, today we are seeing. And today also, the war is started like 210 days ago, and it is brutally is going on. In the beginning of the war, Putin explained this operation a kind of special military operation in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, because there is some ethnic Russian minority, they are living there. They thought that actually Putin would like to show the world that this operation just to keep their security in the region. And also he described this war like neo-Nazi attack on Russians in the Ukraine, and he called that if we didn't control the Ukrainian pro-Western stand, we will see the neo-Nazi in the Moscow.
Okay, Professor, do you think that the move that the four regions has taken, meaning a referendum to join Russia, will be a turning point in the conflict and maybe may cause an escalation in the tensions between Russia and the West?
Of course, it is, even the first day we heard Putin words, today, firstly US and then many European states, especially Baltic and Eastern Europe countries, they have started to declare their opinions about Putin wars. It is not easy. It will be not easy because, in the Georgia 2009, there is such a referendums, but these referendums decisions only recognized by Russian and North Korea and some Russian affiliated state. Even some countries like pro-Russian states, they are not accepted this referendum idea. For this reason, especially in this strategical time, I don't believe that it will be easily accepted by all countries.
Professor of International Relations, Engin Koç, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russia supports Algeria's balanced line in regional international affairs, stressing his country would continue working with Algeria to promote stability in the Middle East and North Africa and the Sahel region. Putin added that Algeria is Russia's second largest trading partner in Africa in terms of trade volume. On the other hand, U.S. Department of State described Algeria as the strong partner for peace and stability in the region 24 hours after Putin's statements.
With regard to the relationship with Algeria, we have a strategic partnership. In March of this year, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations, and we invited the Algerian President Tebboune to visit Russia. Algeria is Russia's second largest trading partner in Africa in terms of trade and economic cooperation. Russia supports Algeria's balanced line in regional and international affairs, and we will continue to work together to promote stability in the Middle East and North Africa and the Sahel region.
A Chinese government spokesperson said on Wednesday that Beijing is willing to do all it can for a peaceful unification with Taiwan. The statement comes following weeks of military maneuvers by Beijing near the island that China claims as its own territory. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi on Tuesday met French President Emmanuel Macron and other European leaders on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly session. The meeting is Raisi's first head-to-head with a major Western leader since he was elected last year and comes amid a complete deadlock to revive the 2015 nuclear talks. In a speech before the United Nations General Assembly, the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, said that the United Nations Security Council must compel Zionist entity to end its occupation of Palestinian territories.
On a different note, I don't think the representatives of different countries present here need to be reminded that the Palestinian question remains without solution. Failure to implement international resolutions, and in light of the continuous change of the situation on the ground, the occupation and its settlement activities is pursuing a policy of fait accompli. This would change the rules of the conflict and will change the format of solidarity in the future. At this juncture, I stress that we stand in full solidarity with the brotherly Palestinian people in its aspiration to achieve justice. The Security Council must shoulder its responsibility and must impel Israel to end the occupation of Palestinian territories and establish a Palestinian state along the borders of 1967 with East Quds as its capital remaining in our region.
Hurricane Fiona has devastated many parts of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic areas. Many people have lost their homes and caused a wide outage for its 1.5 million households. More with Islam Seed.
Debris and fallen trees, mud and rubble everywhere, damaged fields and farms. Scenes of Fiona hurricane aftermath which wiped out Puerto Rico's central, south and southeast regions, triggering almost a complete blackout in the island. The hurricane killed at least 3 people, cut off villages and forced more than 12,000 people from their homes.
What I hope is that the electric service improves and is restored as soon as possible. I was a year without electricity because of Hurricane Maria in 2017.
The water came in a matter of seconds and everything got wet. Absolutely everything. We lost literally everything.
Empty streets of an island in the Turks and Caicos archipelago, as wind swept trees and rocked boats in the harbor. Most people there remain without electricity or running water. On the other hand, families in the Dominican town of Alco searched through the rubble, trying to salvage what is left from their homes after Fiona's strike, which is the first hurricane to score direct hit on the Dominican Republic.
When I was there, it started to hit that side. A friend told me to leave because there was another stronger one coming. It's stronger. It ripped off everything back there.
80% of homes and businesses in Puerto Rico still lacked electricity. Water service was cut off to more than 800,000 consumers because muddy water at filtration plants. The Hurricane Center says the storm is likely to strengthen into Category 4 hurricane as it approaches Bermuda on Friday.
A new Sahrawi diplomatic victory in New York in the framework of the UN General Assembly. The Sahrawi Foreign Minister Mohammed Salim Woudsalik and the Foreign Minister of South Sudan announced the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between the Southern and South Sudan. Both parties have decided to resume their friendly ties in line with the principles and objectives of the African Union. Tunisian police questioned main opposition leader Rashid Al Ghannouchi for more than 12 hours overnight over terrorism accusations. The 81-year-old head of the Islamist Ennahda party was summoned to meet the terrorism police on Tuesday and questioned from 5 p.m. until 6 a.m. on Wednesday. A group of Iranian protesters rallied in Istanbul on Tuesday over the death of a young woman in police custody in Iran. Protesters chanted slogans and marched until riot police blocked the street and dispersed them. Ms. Amini fell into a coma after being arrested by police. Police have said Amini fell ill as she waited with other women held by the police. Her death has sparked nationwide anger and protest in several cities, including in the capital, Tehran. The rebels of the northern Ethiopian region of Tigray are at war with the central government of Ethiopia since 2020, accused neighboring Eritrea of launching a large-scale offensive against that territory. The government of Ethiopia and Eritrea have not confirmed or denied this military operation for the time being. Nearly 11 million students joined their schools in Algeria on Wednesday. The kickoff of the school year takes place in the context of new organizational and pedagogical measures taken by the authorities, which aim to develop the educational system in Algeria and to lay the foundations of an efficient education system. On this occasion, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, expressed his best wishes for all the Algerian pupils for this new schooling year. And now for more world news, let's follow this report.
Residents in Pakistan's southern Sindh province protested on Tuesday, accusing local authorities of diverting floodwater towards their village to save a nearby city. They vowed to continue until floodwater is elevated, claiming that houses and fields had been destroyed and no governmental official helped them.
Nigeria is battling its worst floods in a decade after heavy rains across the region. As a result, at least 20 people died this week, and more than 300 people were killed in a flooding incident so far this year.
A crisis hit Lebanon hopes to adopt key reforms demanded by the International Monetary Fund for a long delayed, but urgently needed bailout before the end of the month if there is political will. The reforms would include restricting the country's banking system and banking secrecy laws.
Our meeting with the IMF delegation today covered all the latest developments related to the legislative reforms that the International Monetary Fund demanded, particularly the Capital Controls Law, the Banking Secrecy Law, the Banking Restructuring Law, and the 2022 state budget. A man set himself on fire near the Japanese Prime Minister's office in Tokyo early Wednesday, in apparent protest against the state funeral planned next week for former leader Shinzo Abe. He sustained burn on a large part of his body, yet he was conscious and told police that he set himself on fire after pouring oil over him.
After Amazon, a new Netflix series promises a Thai perspective on the extraordinary effort to save 13 lives from a flooded cave in 2018. The new series commences Thursday, September 21st. Zahra Farjani has the details.
After a film on Amazon, Netflix is taking a look at the spectacular rescue of Thai children trapped in a cave. The streaming platform presents its series on Thursday on the dangerous rescue of young football players stuck in Thai cave in 2018. Thai Cave Rescue retraces in 6 episodes the remarkable operation of withdrawing 12 boys and their trainer from a flooded underground in the north of Thailand.
I think the show covers some parts that haven't been portrayed enough, like the world of the 12 kids and their coach before it happened.
The plot opens with a soccer match between the teenagers who extend their time together with a visit to the cave in Thailand. Surprised by the sudden rise in waters due to the monsoon, they did not come out of this humid hell until 18 days later, at the cost of a spectacular rescue mission that mobilized nearly 10,000 local and foreign volunteers day and night, which held the world in suspense.
What happens when one of those boys dies?
So you will get to see a deeper...
You will get to see a deeper insight of what life was like for them before, like their hopes and dreams as children. And we dig really deep into every section of the rescue team. So you will get to see how difficult it was to complete the mission, how many times we failed, and how that affected the families of the boys.
The filming took place during the wet season, partly in the cave of Tham Luang in the province of Chiang Rai, bordering Burma, with the aim of notifying people of the dangers of heavy rains in such places.
Well, that's it for today's Word News. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.